It's not possible.
I warned you before about it. Clearly all it was doing was biding its time.
You weren't there, Vice. We know what happened. Linkara couldn't be possessed by it.
Dude, I learned this from the future. Linkara is possessed by it. That's why he's doing all this. It's just a little hard to take in is all. How long has old Glitter Eyes been in the driver's seat?
Since the King of Worms. The entity has lain dormant inside of the champion since its apparent suicide. I know not why it chose to hide out in him, but it did so, asleep and unaware. It affected him, offered certain protections by being inside of him. One such protection was immunity from the platinum masks of the king. When that creature attempted to discover the truth, it awoke the entity, and it killed him in retaliation for disturbing it.
That's why we couldn't detect the entity on Earth. It wasn't on Earth. Did it destroy Comicron 1?
No, it did not destroy my ship. That was simply a convenient accident. I suspect that it planned to do so eventually, however.
That message from the future, it was all about the entity. Pretend to sit upon my throne was the King of Worms. I remember my death was when it died. I am looking over your shoulder, was it possessing Linkara?
And it warned you to wait for its ascent.
Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Why a cryptic message? If the King of Worms is what woke it up, why not just tell Linkara so he could do something about it?
When I went into the future, they would only give me so much information. Didn't want to alter the timeline or something. Linkara wasn't allowed to know.
Then why a warning message at all?
Because it's not really a message. It's not a warning. It's insurance! Of course, that's brilliant! What? What'd he do? The entity is a being of pure information, living data. If you want to fight something like that, you need to do so in a similar manner to its existence. In code! In the future, they have a lot of info about creatures like the entity. They called them the Technumina. They have ways of fighting them. Or blocking them.
The numbers on the card were not merely for deciphering a message. They're a program, a combination that protects the champion's own personality from the entity. It may have possession of his body, but he is not aware of that. It only takes possession of him when it wants to. And as far as he is concerned, he is acting completely like himself.
Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Patreon-sponsored review time again. Surprisingly enough, I don't get as many manga requests as you might think, considering how many years people have asked me to do them. This is one of those cases where I'm really not sure what to say here. There's not much introduction to give. This manga is a fantasy comedy about a group of adventurers in an RPG setting who decide to start eating monsters in dungeons to sustain themselves. Boy, would that have been awkward if, in the middle of the final boss of Trails in the Sky, I had to stop and salt the giant robot. The manga is fairly recent, having been initially released in 2014, and from what I can tell, is still going on today. However, it only got its English translation earlier this year in May. Not sure how you sustain a series with that premise for this long, but let's dig into the first chapter of Delicious in Dungeon and see if we can figure it out.
It could be your
cover for the manga is fine, showing the group inside a dungeon with a small fire cooking up a mushroom. Guys, that's probably not a good idea. I knew a guy once who went through a dungeon while eating mushrooms and it didn't go well.
Am I still doing a review, or did I get back on the magic mushroom?
I love how there's a dragon right there who's all, hey, can I get some of that? And then there's the guy right here with the frying pan and spatula. Jeez, he's got Gowron eyes. He's seen some messed up stuff in this place. Or maybe it's the fact that he's looking at the title. I am going to eat this logo! We open in an expository flashback. It began in a tiny village. The day the Walmart came. One day, the floor of the catacombs caved in with a small rumble, and a man emerged from the depths. The best hide-and-seek player in the world finally returns! The man said he was the king of a golden country that had fallen 1,000 years ago. The once splendid country had been sealed deep beneath the earth by a lunatic magician, and there it remained. David Blaine's reign of terror continues! The corpse-like king proclaimed, I bestow my entire kingdom upon the one who defeats the magician. Yeah, he says that, but after 1,000 years, the kingdom is a bit of a fixer-upper. I don't think it's worth it. With those final words, the man turned to dust and vanished. And doing so before he wrote up a legal will meant that his proclamation was considered null and void in the courts. Lawyers debate about the ownership rights of the kingdom to this day. We cut to the catacombs, where we see a party of adventurers fighting a dragon. Give it all you've got, guys! Once we slay this dragon, we're almost there! Ooh, guys, wait, I know exactly how to stop a dragon. Okay, first you need to randomly find a guy named Bard. The warrior of the group narrates that they're well prepared for this and have no weaknesses. Except one. Hunger. On the way here, we wasted a day wandering around thanks to a mistake on our map. Look, Steve, I don't care what the map says. Not every street can be labeled, here there be dragons. And fell into a trap, losing 3 days worth of food. He then mentions that after they defeat the dragon, they'll have to turn back temporarily to get more food. Well, if you can afford to buy more food, why didn't you do that before you went into the catacombs? Also, how the hell did a dragon get down here anyway? The warrior's sister, who seems to be a mage based on her clothes and staff, shoves him out of the way and the dragon grabs her instead. It seems because the warrior was distracted narrating, his entire team has been knocked out. She yells at him to run, creating a flash of bright light and leading us into our chapter page, which reveals the title of this chapter as Hot Pot. Is there a YouTube cooking show about making fantasy dishes? I feel there's a niche out there that's being unfulfilled. The warrior, who goes by the name of Laios, and sorry about any mispronunciations there, wakes up outside the dungeon with the rest of his party minus his sister, Fallen. It seems she managed to teleport them out of the dungeon, but she was exempt from the spell. Laios wants to go after her, but the elven woman with them points out that most of their equipment got left behind in the dungeon, including their money. What's worse, while Laios was unconscious, 2 of their party resigned from the group, having gotten offers from guilds to join up, and, well, given the current predicament, they decided to take the offers. Ugh, can you just know they're gonna see each other again in a PvP server, and it's gonna be super awkward. Laios tries to think of a way to raise capital, like selling their current armor and weapons for cheaper gear, but it still wouldn't be enough. My little sister is going to be digested while we're getting ready, so she's probably going to be really cranky when we get back to her. People have been resurrected from mincemeat before, right? Has any adventurer ever been revived from poop? Not adventurers, but I could name a few politicians. One of the party members, Chill Chuck, confirms that no, reviving things from poop will not work. And yet you've got to imagine that in a world like this, which has the ability to revive the dead, that there was someone out there who did serious research on resurrecting things from poop. Elf Lady says that they should really go and get something to eat since they were all nearly killed because of the lack of food. However, Laios still refuses to abandon his sister. As such, he suggests the 2 leave the current guild, then he'll sell their equipment and go in by himself. He'd get to keep his current equipment, more easily evade fights, and make his way back down to the depths in a shorter amount of time. That way, they don't have to be put in danger for his mistake. Look, it's not your fault that we decided not to stop at the restaurant before we went into the dungeon. Yes, it was! I mean, yeah, it was Hardee's, but it was still edible! However, the 2 companions, who reveal themselves as a sorceress and rogue, respectively, say that they're going back in there with him. And And then he grabs their shoulders and gets creepy and weird. You really intend to come with me, no matter what? Well, not if you keep acting like that, you weirdo! And thus he reveals his plan, foraging for food in the dungeon. The dungeon is swarming with monsters. That means it has an ecosystem. And hey, if humans are good at anything, it's destroying an ecosystem. According to his logic, there are carnivores in the dungeon, therefore there must be herbivores for them to eat, and plants, water, light, and dirt to nourish the herbivores too. And thus humans can survive within that ecosystem as well. By eating monsters. Think about our past adventures. Some of what we saw looked pretty tasty. Well, yeah, but I just assumed that that chicken nugget monster was an illusion. The two think about said monsters, which includes an ant, a giant fish, and of course a killer bunny rabbit. Although I'm kinda confused by that. The tree monster clearly has apples growing on it, a giant fish seems fine, and hunting rabbits is a pretty standard procedure for someone trying to survive in the wilderness. The elf girl, who I will just say goes by the name Marcille, thinks about less logical monsters. A giant centipede, a gargoyle monster, a zombie, and the ghost of Christmas Future. Oh yeah, that last one won't do any good. It's all bone and no meat. Marcille keeps refusing to eat the monsters, even pointing out that it's likely they'd all end up with food poisoning and all of this would be for nothing. The discussion is brought to the forefront when they spot some newbie adventurers get their asses kicked by a mushroom monster. Marcille knocks it out, but Laios thinks the mushroom creature can be their first meal. Marcille still refuses, but Chilchuck more accurately points out that it could be poisonous. The Dungeon Gourmet Guide says they're a suitable food for beginners. Oh yeah, dude, but that thing was written by Guy Fieri. Do you really trust it all that much? He shows them the book, which has obviously seen a lot of wear and tear. He doesn't want to just eat a mushroom and decides to hunt after a giant scorpion. They run into an open marketplace in the dungeon's first floor. After all, with so many adventurers running through it, it's natural that a small marketplace has been set up inside the catacombs. Years ago, it was a graveyard, a quiet sanctuary where the villagers' ancestors slept. And now it's a place you can get a 30% discount if you pose with a corpse. They say monsters come up from the dungeon's depths. It isn't clear whether they're creatures from above ground that were transformed by forbidden spells, or if they were summoned from a demon world. Well, if they're so tasty, I'm gonna assume they come from Dimension Arby's. Either way, they all look very strange, and they attack as if they were protecting something. Which should probably be a sign that the old king may have just been a deranged homeless guy who wandered into a land that belonged to the monsters, and trying to take it is just being rude. However, they're the only proof that supports the existence of the cursed Golden City. And so, in retrospect, you're all a bunch of morons. As you can see, Laios manages to snag himself a giant scorpion and discusses in detail how to catch one. Which Chilchuck notes that he's obviously been waiting for a chance to try to eat monsters. He admits as much, but he does want to save his sister. I've never said anything, but I like monsters. Their types, their calls, how they live. I love them so much, I just want to devour them! That's especially kind of weird when in the examples of monsters shown in the middle panel, there's a Medusa. As was hinted at before, some monsters are very humanoid. At that point, when does it become cannibalism? Anyway, they head out to a public market and start cutting up the monsters to make a stew. And so they start boiling and dumping chopped bits of monster into it, though Marcille wonders if it's safe to just eat a scorpion as it is. This scorpion's venom isn't harmful if you eat it. Or so I'm told. I want to try it. It's probably no more dangerous than any deep-fried concoction at a state fair. He takes a bite out of the tail and promptly throws up. And now Laios has the next part of the state fair experience. So Gimli here walks up and says their method of creating a scorpion hot pot is incorrect, teaching them the correct way to cut up a scorpion so it doesn't give you the runs. Ugh, just imagine how the inside of Laios' armor will smell when all this is over with. Anyway, he then advises how to deal with the mushroom as well. With walking mushrooms, throw away the rump and 3 centimeters of the surface. I don't know, man. I hear mushroom bud is the best part. He lets them use his larger pot, but notes that just scorpion and mushrooms will be a bit bland. As such, he heads around and gathers some roots and mosses to put into it. But Marcille has had enough. Listen, this is a graveyard. Let's say monsters are okay, but plants that put down roots are out. For religious reasons. I'm just saying, that's a consecrated weed right there. Marcille is interrupted, however, by some slime dripping off the ceiling and covering her head. It's actually a standard slime monster from an RPG, and it starts to suffocate her. Come to think of it, the first thing that killed me was a slime. Hey, a life review. 2 stars out of 10, worst death by far. Fortunately, mysterious bearded dude cuts the slime off of her head, which is not something you usually think of when it comes to a slime monster, but hey, it does the job. He reveals that it's easy to kill a slime with a knife if you know their anatomy. They look amorphous, but actually, they're more uniform than your average human. He says that, but it's gonna turn out that this guy is actually incredibly racist. He then explains how yelling and shouting attracts slimes, so that's why she became a target, then proceeding to explain how to clean and cook a slime into some kind of pancake-looking thing. It takes time to dry it out to make it that edible, though. This is a portable slime drying net I made. It dries while you're walking around with it. Patent pending. I look forward to this product ending up on infomercialism. The guy reveals that he's been studying monster cooking for over a decade and is just happy to share his info with them, finishing up the hot pot and, yeah, it looks delicious. So huge scorpion turns red when you boil it? Oh no, that's just a sign that it's about to explode. Did I not warn you about that? It's of course delicious for the party, even Marcel having to admit that the dried slime innards are good. After dinner, the guy says his name is Senshi. It means seeker in Dwarfish, although only in southern dialects. In the north it means poop farmer. After the rest introduce themselves, they explain how they're after Laios' sister. Based on the description, Senshi thinks that this particular red dragon is a kind whose digestion is far slower than normal, so they do still have a chance of rescuing her. He asks to come along, since he's been wanting to cook a red dragon for years. And of course they accept, since the dude actually knows what the hell he's doing. The red dragon. Should I go with classic steaks, or would ground steak be better? Oh man, I'm gonna have content on my blog for years with that thing! And so the first chapter ends with our heroes venturing forth into the dungeon. Eating is, quite simply, the exclusive privilege of the living. Based on earlier panels, there are zombies in this world, so I'm pretty sure you're full of it. Anyway, this thing is pretty good. It's not laugh-out-loud hilarious, but it's got some funny moments, especially the "can we resurrect someone from poop" thought. If you're not interested in the minutia of not real food preparation, it'll feel like there's a lot of wasted time spent talking about that. But clearly the makers of the manga put a lot of thought into how these fantasy creatures can be cooked and eaten, so credit there. The characters are sadly not given a lot to work with at the beginning, but are all perfectly likable. Honestly, my only real complaint is the idea that they could spend quite a while inside the dungeon before they rescue Laios' sister, which stretches my suspension of disbelief a bit. Yeah, I know, fantasy setting and magic and monsters, but they're trying to approach everything else with so much thought-out detail. I just can't imagine her surviving in stomach acid for that long, especially with what I'll assume is a lack of oxygen and food and whatnot inside the dragon's stomach. But whatever, that's not too big a deal. Overall, enjoyable, but a little light on substance. Next time, we have another long-awaited review. We don't have the insanity of All-Star Batman and Robin anymore, but that will not be the last crazy Batman story on the show, as we delve into the first issue of Batman Odyssey. Now then, Aaron, let's talk about how Saris failed to... Aaron? Huh. I guess that means I am alone now.
What the hell is going on?
An intruder!
Wait.
How the hell did you find us?
All of my technology is outdated. I was able to trace the teleport. But seriously, what is going on with Linkara? His eyes went all creepy and pixely.
We're hoping to do something about that now.
Can she be trusted?
Can you?
I don't think she wants the entity taking over the planet. Now let's finish up here.
What are you doing?
Wasting our time.
And, isn't this just Linkara's supply room?
We're in a pocket dimension, another dimensional layer that's close enough to our own universe that some things are bleeding through, like gravity and air. But most especially important is that this room is filled with raw mystical energy that we can use. Probably because it's used by that Crow cosplayer who talks about horror comics. Linkara is possessed by the entity. The rejected Power Rangers villain here thinks that we can weaken it by separating the two. And 90s Kid thinks we can do that with the help of the girl and Linkara's magic piece.
And even if you can't, she'd still be a powerful ally.
This is pointless. She would have already been...
What?
Margaret, it's okay. We've summoned your image here to talk with you directly, but it won't last long.
But I don't...
Dude, we'll make this simple. The entity is alive and inside of Linkara. We need your help to free him.
Oh, well, I knew that.
You do?
Well, yeah. Linkara carries me around everywhere. Did you think I wouldn't be too?
Cease your fear. It is but an image. It cannot harm us.
And all the pawns on the board are here. So small, so scattered. I've so enjoyed playing with you all. I don't want this game to end. Nothing to say. Usually humans chatter so.
I do not fear you, monster. I hurt you once before. I will hurt you again.
You diminished me.
I did that, and I shall do more.
Tiny Tin Man in his tiny tin armor thought he could slay the big, bad dragon. I'll see you all again soon.
I told you it would be a waste of time.
Didn't see you have any bright ideas, Helmet Head?
To free the champion will require his own will, his own strength breaking through. His mind is protected from most of the entity's control, but he must be made aware of its presence.
The entity will fight back, keep him from seeing it.
He needs a stimulus, something inspirational to draw upon.
He needs a symbol.
Something to show him that there's a chance at winning.
A reminder of his victories.
Indeed, and I know what that will be.